This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. Today I'm going to show how to do this cable join that I use to put these Afghan panels together. It's a sew-as-you-go technique and a wonderful way to add color and texture to a project. This technique looks like intarsia, but it's not, and in fact it looks good on the purl side as well. Let's get started. I begin by selecting 4 needles on the right hand end of the machine. I have to start over on the right because I will gradually move across the needle bed and I don't want to run out of needles as I work. I'm going to put a clothespin on my pink yarn and I'm going to E-wrap cast on, working toward my carriage, which happens to be on the left. After playing with this technique, I've decided it's better not to use any weight because there are only 4 stitches involved. I'm putting the yarn in my carriage and I have my carriage set on the same tension as the blanket, and I will knit from left to right. This is just a get started row. And now I've cast on. I'm going to set my row counter to 0, 0, 0 and then show you how to start attaching the panels. I'm going to attach this panel, which is most of my blanket, to this final panel, which is going to go over here. I lay them out with the wrong side up and look at them, and I make sure that I have the bottom, that is the cast on edges, together here. I'm going to hold the blanket in my lap the whole time so I don't put too much weight on those 4 needles. Now I take a single transfer tool. All I'm going to need for the whole technique is 1 and 2 prong transfer tool. I'm going to pick up the very bottom left stitch on my left hand panel, holding the wrong side, and this is the side, not the bottom, this way, and I'm going to put it on the leftmost needle. Now with my right hand panel, again holding the wrong side toward me and the side along the top here, I'm going to get the very corner stitch and put that on the right. This is just to get me started, and I'm going to pick up this long skinny panel and put it in my lap again to keep the weight off of my little narrow cable, and I knit to the left. Now from now on I'm only going to hang a stitch from the panel opposite the carriage. So with my carriage on the left, I'm going to hang a stitch from the right hand panel, and I'm going to zoom in and show you exactly what loop to pick up. I unroll this, and I find that I do need to unroll it each time, and I go and find that there is a knot, then a loop, then a knot, then a loop, then a knot. I want that first loop after the knot, since I already got the very first loop. I'm getting really the second. Knit from left to right, and by the way, my row counter says row 2. Now I'm ready to pick up a stitch opposite the carriage, so on the left this time, and I go past that first knot and I get this loop right here and hang it on the leftmost needle. Knit to the left. That was row 3. Now I hang the next loop from the right hand panel onto that rightmost needle. I still only have 4 needles. Knit to the right. That was number 4. Now I need to find my next loop to pick up. This is not the loop. You see it's pulled open? It's pulled open because I already picked up that one. Here's the next little knot, and here's my next loop. And I put that on the leftmost needle, knit to the left. I do the same thing over here. I can see not to use that one. I want this one, the next loop, and knit to the right. That was row 6. For row 7, now I will do row 8. Now I'll do row 9. Now, row 10 is the interesting row, because what I'm going to do is pick up this loop, knit across and make row 10. Now I get to do a cable transfer. To do a cable transfer, I take the right two needles, pull them toward me with my 2-prong end on my tool, push them all the way in, walk across these 2 needles, and pick up the next 2 empty needles, put my stitches there. I have just done a cable twist. Now I go and take this panel, find the next loop to pick up, and put it there, opposite the carriage, of course, and knit across. That was row 11. For row 12, I've already picked that up. I'm going to get this loop. Row 13, I'll get this loop. 14, I'll get this loop. 15, this loop. Every time my row counter ends in 0, I'm going to do a cable twist. So, in other words, every 10 rows, I'm going to do a cable twist. So it's important to bump the row counter every time and to keep an eye on it, or to count to yourself. So that was 19 rows. This will be row 20, and it's time for the next cable twist. I just take those 2 stitches, transfer them onto my tool, put those 2 needles all the way back out of work, walk my 2 steps to the left, and put them on these next 2 empty needles on the left. I also need to pick up my next loop on the left. Now after a while, you'll speed up. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's a lot easier than many other cables that you might do with your machine, and it's wonderful to add this additional color or even an additional texture to your project. Just remember that you want the same gauge as your panels. Continue working in this way until your panels are joined all the way from bottom to top. When you have your panels joined, you'll have the same number of rows on the row counter as the length of your panels. Every 10 rows, do the cable. When it's long enough that you are finished, you simply bind off these 4 stitches that you've been working on, and that will complete the join. Now I think this is an effective, easy little technique, and I really hope that you'll try it.